Hi there, this is a presentation on practical strategies to support literacy skills at home. My name is Miss McGee, I'm Principal Teacher of Literacy and Teacher of History and Modern Studies. The aims of this workshop are to highlight the importance of literacy across the curriculum within school and beyond when pupils leave school, why literacy is so important, to show you where you can find support with literacy-based tasks for your child within the school, and then finally to provide practical strategies that you can implement at home to support literacy further. What do we mean by literacy? So literacy is defined as the ability to read, write, speak and listen in a way that lets us communicate effectively and make sense of the world. It's therefore crucial not only in all subjects across the school curriculum, but in daily life. We use literacy constantly on a daily basis, perhaps without realising a lot of the time. Things like reading bus timetables, booking holidays, reading medicine labels, these are all forms of literacy. So that makes it one of the most important skills for pupils to develop and improve, and the aim of this presentation is to give you effective strategies to help to do that. So why is literacy so important? As I've outlined in the last slide, it's used on a daily basis. In addition to that, there's a couple of key facts I wanted to highlight to you that show why it is so essential. So the Reading Agency found that improving literacy skills leads to increased attainment across all subjects. And an example is that children who read books quite often at the age of 11 and more than once a week at the age of 16 get higher results in maths tests at age 16 than those who read less regularly. So this shows a direct link between literacy skills and attainment in maths, showing that it is really important in order for pupils to access the whole curriculum. Literacy skills are essential for pupils to understand the content and requirement of all subjects, because for every subject they're going to have to read the question and process it and understand it before providing their response. Children who are most engaged with literacy are also 3 times as likely to have higher levels of mental well-being than children who are the least engaged. That was a study found by the National Literacy Trust, and I think that again summarises how important it is. It can have an impact on their mental health as well, and obviously as educators and as parents and carers, it's in our utmost interest to ensure that our young people will have high levels of mental well-being. So therefore improving literacy can lead to increased levels of mental well-being as well. And why is it a current concern that literacy levels might not be where we would like them to be? So the National Literacy Trust, which represents the UK, carried out a report last year in 2023 and found that 56% of young people don't enjoy reading in their own time. This is a really stark figure, telling us that most young people don't actually enjoy reading in their own time, and this is the worst that the figure has been since the National Literacy Trust began this study. Therefore, it's in all of our interest to improve engagement with reading, because reading really underpins all of the literacy skills. The same report found that 65% of young people don't enjoy writing. Again, that's something that we are going to try to tackle and increase the enjoyment with reading and writing with our young people. Why this is an issue moving beyond school is the Literacy Trust found that 1 in 4 adults in Scotland experience challenges in a variety of ways due to their lack of literacy skills. So again, we want to make sure that our young people are well equipped to go on to the world of work and to live fulfilled, happy lives. Therefore, it's in our interest to try to support and improve literacy skills as much as we can. So to put into context where literacy skills are used across the school, I'm going to show you some examples from a variety of subjects which require pupils to use their reading, writing, speaking and listening skills. The first example is going to be from S1 English. However, I just want to stress that when we're talking about literacy, we're talking about reading, writing, talking and listening. So those are skills that are applicable in every subject, and while this is an English example, literacy skills are not only for English classrooms, they're important across the curriculum. When we look at this question, what I would like you to consider is not what the answer is, but what difficulties might pupils face in attempting to answer this question. So this is an example of what is called an own words question that would be given to pupils in S1 English. This is a comprehension skill question, and to do these questions, pupils learn a formula called locate and translate. So the locate part of that is they find the answer in the passage, and then the translate part is they put the answer into their own words to show their understanding of it. So with the next question, we're going to use the locate and translate formula to answer the own words question. We'll read the question, locate the answer, and then translate the answer. Now this is a skill that is used in English, but it also is applicable in other subjects. The exact same skill is used in history, for example, so it's one that we would like pupils to become really skilled at. So here is the own words question. The passage says, I became very ill in 2015 and was bedridden for days on end. I realised I'd taken wildlife for granted. Until that point, I had been a busy working mum, so wrapped up in modern life that I never stopped to see the wonder of a sunset or notice the decline in our birds. Pupils are asked, explain the difficulty the writer faced in 2015 for 2 marks, and they're going to locate and then translate the answer. So the answer that we would be hoping that they would find is, I became very ill in 2015 and was bedridden for days on end. To translate that, they could say something along the lines of, the writer was extremely poorly and was unable to get up. What I want you to have a think about is, why might a pupil be unable to access this question? What kind of barriers might they face? What would make it a difficult question for them to be able to answer? This question could be difficult because, firstly, pupils might not read the question properly, and that might lead to them choosing an answer from the wrong part of the text. Later in this presentation, I'm going to tell you about a strategy that we have just launched whole school that will help pupils to slow down and process questions better. They might be unable to think of different ways to articulate very ill or bedridden. Again, later in this presentation, I'm going to tell you about some useful tools to help enhance pupil vocabulary. Finally, they might not know what bedridden means. So hopefully this example has shown you how crucial literacy skills are in S1 for being able to access comprehension style questions. The next few examples are going to be from different subjects. As I mentioned earlier, literacy is so important to every single subject. Every single subject requires pupils to read a question, process it and understand it before they attempt to answer it. The 2 examples I'm going to show you next come from Art and Design and Mathematics National 5 exam paper, and are good examples to show how important reading and writing skills are for pupils to access all subjects across the curriculum. The first example is from the 2022 Art and Design National 5 paper. So the question that I've highlighted here is a 10-mark question and a 5-mark question. So that in itself tells us that pupils are going to be expected to provide an extended piece of writing for their answer, which obviously is going to require good writing skills. Secondly, there's a little bit of reading required for each of the questions again. So again, this is going to require pupils to slow down, carefully read and process the question before they attempt to answer it. And this example is from the 2022 maths paper. So again, there's quite a long question there for pupils to read, and obviously it's really important that they understand each part of the question in order to be able to give the correct answer. Therefore, these examples have hopefully shown that literacy is very directly linked to attainment across all subjects, which is why it's so important for us to do what we can to support and improve literacy skills. Within the school, there are a variety of initiatives and supports available for pupils to help improve their literacy skills. So firstly, a targeted form of support is our literacy tutorial programme, which is for pupils in S1 to S3. The tutorials I'll talk to you more about, but that's a targeted form of support for pupils who are recommended for tutorials. Secondly, I'm going to show you one of the digital tools that we think is really valuable for proofreading, which is called Immersive Reader. And finally, we have S5 literacy ambassadors. Teachers, of course, are on hand to offer literacy support whenever required. The library is open again, and our librarian, Mrs. Smith, is more than happy to help pupils with their literacy skills as well. And finally, I'm going to tell you about a new initiative called Bug that we've launched that hopefully will help pupils in processing questions. Literacy tutorials are available for pupils in S1 to S3. The groups are flexible, which means that pupils can be added throughout the year, and that might be due to a recommendation given from staff, perhaps their English teacher or their guidance teacher or another teacher who's noticed that they could do with a little bit of extra support with their literacy skills, or it might come directly as a request from parents or carers if they feel that their child needs a little bit of extra support with literacy. The tutorial groups follow a programme which is very closely aligned with the literacy benchmarks set out by Education Scotland, and as I said, they're targeted usually at the start of the year, but they can be added throughout the year, and they also have the opportunity to graduate from the tutorials. So if we feel that they no longer require that extra intervention, then they can be taken out of the tutorial programme and graduated.
Every pupil has access to Microsoft Office through their Glow account online. All they have to do is log on to their Glow account, and then they can choose whatever type of resource they want to use. So if they're using Microsoft Word, this is a really good way for them to proofread any form of homework. All they have to do is type whatever it is they're working on, and then up here where it says editing, change to viewing, and then they can click on Immersive Reader at the top, and it will read whatever they've written back to them to check for spelling and grammar errors.
Immersive Reader is useful for proofreading.
They can also click this option up here for grammar options and choose to highlight nouns, verbs, etc. if that's something that would be useful for them too.
We have appointed literacy ambassadors in S5, so we currently have around 12 S5 pupils who are literacy ambassadors who are on hand to support S1 to S3 with reading and writing, and they're also hopefully going to be going into the primary schools as well to try to increase engagement with reading and writing. They are organising currently some whole school events for World Book Day celebrations, so they're organising a book swap which is open to the whole school. Pupils are being asked to bring in a book, and in return on World Book Day on the 7th of March, they can exchange their book for another book. They can bring in donations from now. There's a box in the school library where they can leave their book that they're donating, and in return they can get a book on World Book Day. If they don't have a book to bring in, that is absolutely fine. We're just asking if they could bring in a £1 donation, which will go towards our library funds. That would be excellent. So this is a great way for pupils hopefully to get involved and increase engagement with reading. They're also organising a teacher door decorating competition, so we're trying to just think of ways to promote the enjoyment of reading across the curriculum, and the ambassadors will also be supporting our tutorial programme as well. Our school library is open to all pupils, and our librarian, Mrs. Smith, is on hand to give support and advice to pupils if they're unsure of which book is right for them. So if pupils aren't sure which book to choose, they can go along, have a chat with Mrs. Smith, and she will be able to recommend some genres that might appeal to the pupils' interests. Our library has over 8,000 books available, so there is a huge amount of choice available to pupils, which is essential in ensuring that they have choice and variety as a means of increasing engagement with reading. Pupils are also given the chance to change their book on a weekly basis, so they can visit the library and switch their book over. And in S1 to 3, they're also given the chance to read for 10 minutes at the start of their English period. Throughout the year, there are rewards available to do with reading. For example, in English, there's Reading Olympics, which is trying to encourage more frequency with reading. And during Book Week Scotland, the Literacy Committee run a number of different initiatives, one being Drop Everything and Read, where in every subject, once throughout the week, the teacher will say drop everything and read, and the pupils can read their own book, or there might be some subject-specific reading material available to them. Finally, we are soon going to be launching our e-platform again, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Mrs. Smith will make an announcement when that is ready to go, because ebooks can be a brilliant way to try and engage reluctant readers, and a lot of our pupils prefer that media for reading, so that's coming very soon. Bug is a whole school initiative which has been launched by our literacy working group. On the screen you can see our Bishy Bug, which was designed by a really creative and talented pupil in S2. This bug is going to appear in every single classroom. We'll be seeing a lot more of the bug around the school, and as I said, it's a whole school approach, so it's from S1 to S6. We think this is a brilliant way to get pupils to really slow down and process what they're being asked to do in every subject, whether that's a question that is low stakes, it's not an exam question, it's not a test question, it's just a question in class, or whether this is a question in their SQA exam. They can apply this method and hopefully it will allow them to experience higher levels of attainment and achievement because they've really understood what the question is asking. Bug was introduced by our literacy committee, and the rationale behind it is we conducted an audit with all staff, and what came back from the audit was some departments thought that pupils were racing ahead with questions and not really understanding what the question was asking. So that was quite a common area for development across the school, across multiple subjects, and we hope that Bug will help to address that issue. So the bug method, the phrase is to bug the question, and the method involves B, boxing the command word of the question. So this could be a word like describe, explain, create. Then pupils are going to underline keywords. Now, there's not a correct answer with underlining the keywords. There might be in certain areas, but all we're wanting them to do is underline what they think the key part of the question is to allow them to develop their understanding. Finally, the G is to glance back at the number of marks, so the pupils have a clear understanding of how many points they're required to put down in order to achieve as highly as possible within the question. This is an example question of Bug being used. So the question is, explain two contrasting ways in which Holy Communion is celebrated in Christianity. So pupils using the Bug method would box off the word explain, that's the command word, then underline keywords to them in the question. So that could be two contrasting ways, to focus their brain that they're wanting to find two contrasting ways, and then celebrated potentially. Then pupils would glance at the number of marks, 4 marks in this case, so they would know they have to put 4 distinct points in order to achieve full marks. So I've outlined to you where pupils have support with literacy in school. Now let's look at some practical strategies for supporting literacy skills at home. Firstly, reading. Reading is, as I've said, so important to improving mental well-being and increasing vocabulary and to understanding everything. So we're aware that we have some very reluctant readers in the school and pupils who might face barriers that make reading difficult and unenjoyable. And we want to do what we can to try to remove those barriers and to try to increase engagement with reading. So firstly, in the library we have the Barrington Stoke collection of books. These books are dyslexia-friendly fiction books which pupils can check out, and there's a huge range of genres of these books in the library, so they hopefully will appeal to all interests. Secondly, there's a really strong appetite for listening to stories being read, with almost all children in a recent National Literacy Trust survey saying that they enjoyed stories being read to them. We can support this because we're going to be launching our e-platform, but also the Eastern Bartonshire libraries have audiobooks available for you to check out, and obviously there's lots of apps that allow you to download audiobooks as well. Some parents and carers might find that it's really hard to encourage your young person to try to read in their spare time. So these are just some tips that you could implement to see if that helps to improve engagement with reading. Firstly, you might want to create a reading routine at home. So this might be a set time of day where everyone in the family drops everything and reads, or it could be a cosy corner being set up that is the reading corner, maybe with some cushions and things like that. maybe a little hot chocolate, something that is going to appeal to your young person and encourage them to pick up a book. Secondly, as a parent or carer, it's really important to try to model reading where possible and model your enjoyment of reading, telling your young person how you're enjoying your book and how you would rate your book. There's a brilliant app as well, which I think is called Goodreads. It's a free to download app, and you can rate books on it, read other people's reviews, and you can mark books as your to read list. So that could be a good way to get the family involved as well, because you can add friends to it. So as a family, you could use that app to inspire some engagement around reading. You could create little challenges around reading, for example, book bingo. Who can read a book that's about sport? Who can read a book about historical fiction? That type of thing. Or reading Olympics to improve frequency of reading. Encourage discussion around reading. So on the next slide there are some example questions of how you could create discussion with your child about what they're reading. If your child is a really reluctant reader, thinking about would they engage more with an ebook, an audiobook, or a different form of text like a comic, and making that available to them. Celebrating reading achievements and surrounding children with print-rich materials such as books, magazines, newspapers, so they have reading accessible to them. As I said earlier, they will be able to check out a book from our library, and what I would recommend is when they come home from school, asking them to put their book next to their bed so that it's visible to them and a reminder that they could read before they go to bed. So here are a few example questions of how you could start a discussion about reading at home. So the first list is fiction questions. So things like, what made you choose this book? Who is the main character? What 3 things have happened so far? What do you think is going to happen? How does the book make you feel? Maybe a rating of the book and why. If it's non-fiction, 3 facts about the topic. What would you choose next if you were picking another non-fiction book? A lot of examples there that might help to inspire some discussion around reading. Other more subtle ways to get your child involved with more reading is having them help with cooking or baking. So that could be getting them to take responsibility for getting all the ingredients or reading the recipe out to you. So it's a more subtle method than picking up a book and reading, but it's still helping to improve their reading skills. It could be giving them some responsibility, so you might give them a research responsibility, for example, researching a potential holiday destination and giving you a little summary of the location and what are the best things to do in that location, what do other people recommend, reading reviews online, things like that are likely to spark their interest, even if they're really interested in a particular sport. Getting them to summarise after a match has been, how the match went, what did they think went well about the match, what could the team improve for next time, or playing board games together and things like that. So there are other ways to try and enhance your child's reading skills that aren't directly picking up a book or listening to an audiobook, for example, if they are a really reluctant reader, and as time goes on it might be possible to introduce more traditional forms of reading. Ways to encourage writing at home. So you could do some daily writing activities, for example, getting them to do little to-do lists that they can check off throughout the day, which will help their organisation skills as well, especially as they move up through the senior phase. That will be really crucial for organising their revision and studying. Shopping lists, so they could help with the family shopping list, or journaling, which might help towards improving their mental well-being as well if they're journaling their thoughts each day. If you would like to practice spelling, you can use the method of look, say, cover, write, check, to try and kind of rote learn some keywords that they might misspell. You could recommend that they go to helpful websites to practice spelling or to enhance their vocabulary. I'm going to show you some great examples at the end of this presentation. You might want to proofread homework with your child and encourage them to improve their technical accuracy within their writing. Encouraging them to independently proofread using a different format, for example printing out their work if they've typed it so they can check for any errors and edit their work, or encourage them to independently proofread using a checklist, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. This is our shared writing success criteria. This is used across the school in all subjects. It's generic, so it can be applied to any subject, and you are welcome to use this for homework as well to help support your child to improve their writing. So you can see it's got red, amber, green, so you could use this with your child to check their homework and proofread it and make sure that they've met the success criteria for their piece of writing. If a limited vocabulary is a concern for you for your child, one of the kind of fun ways to try to improve vocabulary is this website here. So the screenshot that I've posted on here shows you a little quiz. So it's a 10-question quiz, and it gives a statement, and you've got multiple choice options to pick what the most appropriate word is. And then once you've chosen the right word, it'll give you like a little reward and come up with what the definition of that word is. So it's a kind of fun way. You could set a little challenge for your child to take part in the quiz to enhance their vocabulary. You can also just search for words to find out what they mean, and other words related to them as well if they wanted to enhance an essay or a written piece of work they've done. This website is brilliant for practicing spelling. So you've got 15 seconds to answer each question. Again, it's 10 questions, and what happens is you press the sound button and the word is read aloud to you, and then you've got 15 seconds to spell the word. So it's a good little quiz to try and engage them with spelling and practice their spelling at home if spelling is an area of concern. Free Rice is a brilliant website to use to practice spelling and also comprehension. There's lots of other little games on there as well. It's a website run by the United Nations, and for the spelling one, the pupils are given a sentence with a missing word, and they have to find the right spelling of the word that would fill in the blank properly. Another example that you could do as a fun activity at home is, you might have heard of the New York Times game Wordle that is released every day, and you try and guess what the word is of the day. You can actually create a custom Wordle. So if you go to the link on the screen, you can set a word each day for your child, and they have 6 attempts to try and guess what the word is, and that's another fun way of improving their spelling and increasing their vocabulary. A final example of ways to improve vocabulary at home is the game Taboo. So for this game, you could give them a photo or you could give them a word that they need to describe to the rest of the family with a list of words that they're not allowed to say. So for example, on the screen you can see a picture of New York City. They wouldn't be allowed to say New York or city or bright lights. So they would have to use a wide-ranging vocabulary in order to describe it and have the rest of the family guess what they're describing. So this is just another little game example that you can use to try and enhance your child's vocabulary. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope that you found it useful and it's given you some practical strategies for supporting literacy at home. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.